Alrighty. Howdy folks. This is Diane Liddington, and this is a little bit about me, cultivating my STEM identity, just kind of spending some time engaging in STEMness and being um, eh, doing the things that I love about STEM. So I have always really enjoyed, I teach biology. So life in general has always been very intriguing to me. I love studying different organisms and learning how they function and how they might dysfunction, how they might not work, how things can go awry, how they can adapt to their environments. And the book that I chose for this is a book that I started reading over the summer. My husband bought this book for me. It's called Virals. It's by Kathy Reichs, and he didn't know at the time that this is actually a young adult reader. So it's pretty good if you're trying to read like summer reading, something that goes pretty quick. For those of you who don't know, Kathy Reichs is an author who writes the Temperance Brennan series, things like 206 Bones, Deja Dead. There's a ton. I've read, oh my goodness, at least a dozen of her books. But Kathy Reichs writes the Temperance Brennan series, and Temperance Brennan is a forensic anthropologist who uses the bones left over from a crime to help solve said crime. I love those books. This book here, Virals, is a sort of an offshoot of it. The main character isn't Temperance Brennan, it's her niece. There is quite a bit of science in it. At least the beginning a portion of it has more science woven in it. But I'm about 3/4 of the way through, and it's starting to get a little science fiction-y now. The gist is her dad works at a research lab off, North Carolina, one of the coastlines off Carolinas, I think. I'm forgetting the actual location, but he works in a research lab. So she knows her stuff. Her dad works in a lab. Auntie's a forensic anthropologist, so she knows stuff and she uses her knowledge base to kind of figure things out as she's going through. But they have now contracted a virus from a dog, and it's getting a little weird. So I really liked the beginning. It's starting to get, like I said, starting to get a little weird. We'll see how it goes. But if you do like the heavier into the science portion of things, the Temperance Brennan series is actually the book series that inspired the TV show Bones. So if you like that kind of stuff, I highly recommend Bones. It's off air. It's been off air for a while. There's 12 seasons of it, but that's on Hulu, streaming on Hulu. Awesome. Those are both awesome options for you. TV, more TV. Like I mentioned, Bones. I love Bones, but I haven't watched that in a while. My new kick has been vet shows. I absolutely love vet shows. I rolled through all of Incredible Dr. Pol. I rolled through Yukon Vet with Dr. Oakley. I'm currently watching Dr. K's Exotic Animal ER. And it's neat. In all of these shows, you're getting a different sense of different kinds of animals and how you work with them. Dr. Pol, it does a lot more large animal farm calls. They're in rural Michigan. Yukon Vet, and she's up in the Yukon, so they go to wildlife calls, and she's taking care of herds of bison, herds of caribou. She's in a helicopter shooting darts at wild animals. Very different vibe, and so I'm really digging this different view on these exotic pets, because you just don't see it as often, and you don't see, cats and dogs. We kind of we see them more frequently, we understand them better. So it's really interesting just to see the care that it takes to care for such different and such unique animals. In this area, I charged myself to try a new show, and I was flipping through Amazon Prime and found Dr. G Medical Examiner. This is another area that I really like, that I engage in my STEMness. Um, and I like crime shows, whether it's drama or active, not active, oh gosh, um, or documentary style things. So it was really neat the first episode. There were three different three different individuals that she had to investigate. Two were possible suicides, turned out not to be. And then the other was a homeless man who it ended up being chronic high blood pressure. But because he was homeless, they didn't have any medical history. So it was really difficult for her to try to figure that out. But she is a scientist in the sense of she's just figuring things out. There's so much problem solving. And I think that's why I like those kinds of shows is I get to go on the journey with that person and not help them, obviously they already figured it out, but kind of go through that journey that they took in order to get to the answer and figure out what happened to the person. For a podcast, I'm not usually a big podcaster, but I tried a new one. There's a series streaming on Spotify is how I came to it. It's called Science Versus, and they pick a topic that there's sort of kind of two, I guess a little bit of debate going on that topic. The episode that I use for class, and I've used for my astronomy class before, I use in my introductory unit where we talk about astronomy versus astrology, and it's a 25-minute episode discussing, they talk to somebody who's really into astrology, they talk to a professor of astronomy, and they kind of go through the storyline of how astrology came about and astronomy and how that came about, and that's kind of cool. The episode that I watched here, because listened to, I wanted to listen to something new, right? I've already done astronomy and astrology a bazillion times. So I listened to an episode called Detoxes and Cleanses, and essentially it went over, do they work? There were 4 different types of detox cleanses that they talked about. They talked about detox teas, colonics, activated charcoal, oh my goodness, and sweating it out, like saunas. And go figure, they dove through tons of research, and they actually go find papers, like published journals, to try to find supporting evidence one way or the other. And basically all of them didn't make sense. There was something ineffective about all of them. Because basically these things are done in your body. Detoxing is done in your body, right? Between your liver and your kidneys, that's where the detoxing happens. The other stuff is either working too far down, right? Like teas and colonics are working your colon, which everything's already sucked out by that point as far as toxins. Or activated charcoal is just such a small amount. It's not doing anything. That one I kind of knew. Because from watching all the vet shows, I knew that activated charcoal, like they use activated charcoal for poisoning patients. But I've watched them pump tubes full of activated charcoal into a dog. Imagine being a grown human and you're taking a pill this big with activated charcoal in it. That's obviously not going to be super effective. Technically it might suck out a couple little toxic things, but it's not really like, let's just say it's not effective. So that was really interesting because, like I said before, I really am into those health in the human body, how it works, how it doesn't work. And And so this was another place for me to kind of engage in that area of science that really jives me. Um, the last thing was my place. This is my happy place. I love going to the zoo. It is, I love it. And another thing that I love is my boys love it. They're 3 and oh my gosh, 3 and 7. He just turned 7. I can't. They're 3 and 7, and I love helping them cultivate their STEM identity. I feel like that's part of mine, is that I'm passing it on. Like I'm passing on this love for science, and STEM to my boys. So I took them to the zoo. We went together. Daddy was away for the weekend, and we went to the zoo. Um, I put this picture here. Our zoo, it's the Lehigh Valley Zoo. Uh, they have this Skipmore horned oryx. It's, I don't know if you'd call it a gazelle, an antelope. It's in that family of animals, ruminants of some kind. You can see us taking our little selfie here with them in the background. I put this picture in here because this is a species of animal that does not exist in the wild. It's actually extinct in the wild. So it's super cool that we get to experience that. We get to go to our local zoo, 35, 40 minutes away, and we get to see this animal that you can't elsewhere. They don't exist in the wild. But it's also sad, and it makes you want to keep going to the zoo and like help the zoo support their programs, for reintroduction and species survival plans that they have for different species. Zoos are not what they used to be. They don't just like snatch animals out of the wild and shove them in the zoo so we can all look at them. They help conserve these species in the wild. They save ones that can't survive in the wild on their own. Birds with broken wings and things like that, like animals that couldn't survive in the wild. Leucistic and albino animals that would stick out like sore thumbs. They'd get picked off in an instant by a predator. They can survive in the zoo, and then we can learn about them and coding and genetics of those species. So I love the zoo because we get to experience it. Me and my boys, they get to see the animals and get an appreciation for them and for nature and hopefully preserving it. But by going, we're helping the zoo preserve these species down the road so that everybody can hopefully enjoy them. So that's that. I've talked your ear off, but that's Diane and her little bit of STEM identity cultivation.